murdery thingy.
Yes, it is. That's what it is. It's mystery murdery thingy. Welcome to the mystery murdery thingy.
I'm really excited.
Yes, because it's Wednesday, and I finished my write-up. Woo! Yeah! Oh, yeah. Being super responsible.
It's gonna be a good night.
It's gonna be a good night.
Speaking of a good night, I really need one.
Good night, moon.
Good night, stars.
Good night.
Good night, clouds.
Good night, cow jumping over the moon.
Good night, grass.
Good night, Chloe.
Good.
Close your eyes. I'm Mario.
I'm Chloe.
This is like mystery murdery thingy. And we talk about mysteries.
And murderies.
And thingies.
And
this week we're doing some
government weird
cover-ups.
Shit. Cover-ups. Things that happened in actual real life.
Yes, but that governments do not want you to know about.
Okay, so I want to go first because you said yours was a discussion.
Did I?
Or not a discussion, like you just said there's a lot to it.
Yeah, it's kind of recent history, you know. It's yeah. I could have done research for probably like a billion hours, and I did it for like 2 hours. But I'd also like read about it before, like in the news and stuff. Anyway, you can go first. That's fine with me.
Okay. Oh my god.
Do your thing. Move shit around.
Okay.
There we go.
I'm almost ready. I'm ready.
Are you ready?
Take your glasses off.
Am I ready? All right, my glasses off.
By the way, I make Mario take his glasses off because he likes to read ahead, and he just reads the whole page, and it's like, okay, well, then why am I saying it out loud if you're not going to listen to me?
I'll read like one random word, and you like freak out.
Yeah, it's a surprise.
Come on.
Okay, so let's discuss German politician Uwe Barschel. I think that's how that goes.
Sure.
Barschel. Whatever. I'm saying Barschel.
Cool.
Mysterious death. At only 38, Barschel was one of the youngest politicians to be elected minister-president of the German state Schleswig-Holstein. He was a prominent member of the Christian Democratic Union. So,
okay.
There's the Christian Democratic Union, the CDU, then there's the RDP, which is the SPD, which is the Social Democratic Party of Germany, and that's like kind of the two governments that are in, I suppose they're the ones that are in power, the parties that are in power.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Angela Merkel is
because there's a lot
Christian Democrat.
There's a lot of parties in Germany.
Exactly. I mean, it's more like that kind of like parliamentary system where you have like a bunch of parties and you like form coalitions, and sometimes like weird coalitions form. Like we're like not used to that because it's just like Republican or Democrat.
Yeah.
But there it's like way more complicated.
So this is his corner of that world.
And when is this exactly?
Mid to late 80s.
Oh, okay.
In the 80s. So we have this
Germany in
politician,
the 80s
right?
seems like it would be really fun, by the way. Like
why?
I'm picturing like a club in Berlin in like 1985, like shit ton of leather,
lots of cocaine,
lots of like anonymous sex in the bathrooms and like glory holes and shit.
Ew.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily have hung out there. I just think it makes a good setting for like a movie or something.
All right, get it, film it, do it.
Yeah,
okay,
I'm not gonna do that.
So
but you do it.
The Christian Democratic Union,
right,
and the Social Democratic Party of Germany. So what happened that kind of set this off, I think, is they had like a kind of Watergate scandal. They called it the Waterkant Gate. So like here he is, like he's at the top of his career, he's doing really well, and then he's getting ready for the upcoming election campaign. Sorry, I'm like really, okay. So a quick summary of Watergate. So basically burglars were caught at the DNC HQ, the Democratic National Committee headquarters. Turns out they were like working for Nixon, I guess, and then they're looking for dirt on something to like bring down the Democrats, because they wanted to sway the vote for upcoming elections.
Right. It was part of the Nixon, committee to re-elect Nixon or whatever.
It's like teenagers like getting dirt on each other. That's like what I thought about.
And they were like found out by this like night watchman.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is pretty funny. It was just like some, guy who was like not a real policeman. And he like broke the biggest political scandal in like the past 50 years.
Okay, revealed lots of crazy shit, like these burglars were being paid by Nixon's campaign and that he had been recording conversations and shit. Barschel was kind of sort of accused of something similar.
Okay.
So Barschel's media advisor, Rainer Pfeiffer, told German news magazine Der Spiegel that he was ordered by Barschel to spy on the SPD. Him and his top election candidate, Bjorn Engholm. So what their plan was, they wanted to bring an anonymous charge of suspicions of tax evasion against Engholm. So they were gonna like find up this way to get him on trial for tax evasion.
Trump up some charges.
Yes. Pfeiffer said that he was given orders to install a bugging device in Barschel's phone and accused the SPD of being perpetrators. Now, these are pretty heavy accusations, very serious. This scandal definitely messed up his life and messed up his career. He never admitted to anything. September 18th, 1987, he even said to the press that none of the accusations are true. Quote, "I give you my word of honor, I repeat, my word of honor, that the charges brought against me are unfounded." End quote. Well, he resigned. Yeah. October 2nd, 1987, after his party, the CDU dropped him.
Oh.
Yeah.
So they kind of like pushed him out a little. That is kind of Nixonian too. Like there's the famous story of like Republican senators going into Nixon, the office, the Oval Office or whatever, and just like telling him like, hey, like it's done. Like you can't be president anymore. I'm sorry. Like we won't support you.
Do you think that's going to happen?
With Trump?
No, we're not doing this. Okay.
There are definitely people making those comparisons, but hey, who knows? Who fucking knows?
You want to talk about dead people?
You want to talk about failed politicians?
You want to talk about death?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, mine's definitely going to talk more about death, so we'll get there.
We're getting there.
You're rubbing your hands so vigorously.
Okay. I don't know what to do with them.
What do I do with my feet? Sorry, that's a reference to It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Oh my god. Back into
You'll get it if you've watched a lot of It's Always Sunny. He's sitting on a stool. He doesn't know what to do with his feet.
That show is not funny.
It's not funny. It's fucking hilarious.
It's so stupid.
Funny.
It's
yes.
Stupid.
Yes. It's very funny and stupid. Okay,
go
on with the story.
This is not a review. We're getting really off topic today. That's on me. Death. October 1987, Uwe Barschel goes on vacation to the beautiful Gran Canaria in Spain, after this scandal kind of tore up his life. Mm-hmm. Having such heavy accusations against him, it just like, that was it. Media came in like squirrels on an acorn or something.
I've never heard anyone say that before.
Because I made it up. Okay. Meanwhile,
Good for you.
Meanwhile, the investigation committee is like, great, you're on vacation, but we need you to come back to Germany for this investigation. He's like, okay, wait, no, I'm going to use this to get information to prove that I'm innocent. And then he he said, like, give me, like, a couple days or something. So he goes to Geneva to visit his mysterious informant, Robert Olef. The next day, Barschel was found dead in his bathtub in his hotel room, fully clothed. The cause of death is said to be an overdose of medicine, but it was ruled as suicide. And his family is also convinced that he was murdered.
I mean, it definitely seems like he could have been murdered.
He was, like, at this point where he was going to get information to prove that he was innocent.
Right, it seemed like he was on this kind of, like, mission, this quest. Why would he have killed himself?
Yeah.
Before he proved his innocence.
Yeah. There was a slow investigation by police that never really led to anything until November of 2010, which is much later, 30-some years later. The respected Swiss toxicologist Hans Brandenburger, that's what it is, an expert witness in many criminal cases in Germany. He looked at it, concluded after a long examination that Barschel indeed had been murdered. He said that the drugs found in his room and body are virtually impossible for, like, a normal person who's not, like, a physicist or something to get. You can't just, like, get it. And so they deemed it, like, a professional hit. Like some drug cartel shit, maybe? I don't know. So this scandal went quite deep, and we didn't really find out what happened until 6 years later. This is a pretty good plot twist here. Okay. So Pfeiffer, the apparent whistleblower, the one who was like, I was ordered to bug Barschel's phone.
Right.
Was in control the entire time.
What?
He was given 50,000 German marks by the minister of the SPD, their like rival party.
Mm-hmm.
Now Bjorn Engholm became the victim. So Bjorn Engholm was the top guy at the SPD.
Oh.
And he was like kind of like profiting off of this. Like he was playing the victim card.
Interesting.
On his votes, and it worked really well until 6 years later when most of this is passed. And then he resigned in 1993. So Barschel is deemed innocent, but it's too late because this is 6 years later and he's dead.
Yeah, you know, being innocent and dead, I guess that's better than being guilty and dead. But wouldn't you rather be, like, guilty and alive, I guess? Or, better yet, even
no,
innocent and alive. I think that's the best one. Probably.
That's us right now.
For now, we haven't done anything yet.
Yet.
You don't know. We'll see.
So, let's go over some theories.
Cool.
Victor Ostrovsky, this kind of blows the whole thing open, by the way, but yeah. So a guy named Victor Ostrovsky, he was like a one-time agent for Mossad, wrote a memoir titled The Other Side of Deception. A rogue agent exposes the Mossad's secret agenda. And it went into detail about this incident. So the basic account is that Barschel was lured to the hotel by Robert Olef, who was his mysterious informer. That's what we thought. But he was actually on the SPD side. So he, like, lured Barschel to the hotel, gave him a call. They had dinner, and he was given a sedative in his wine. And then he went to his room, fell unconscious. And then the Israeli assassins broke in, fed Barschel barbiturates through a feeding tube, then gave him some kind of pill that induced a fever, and then they took him to a bathtub in ice cold water, and his body goes into shock, and his heart stops and he dies.
The fuck?
The fuck is right.
That's an incredibly complex way to serve out a hit on someone. Like, that's completely insane.
It's very bizarre.
Is that like real?
Well, here's the thing.
Is that what really happened?
Here's the thing. an official did say that Ostrovsky's credibility is in question because the stories in his book, some of them can be like proved, like it's public knowledge, like this happened. In his book are exaggerated. Some information is true, some of it's false, and a lot of it is gossip.
Yeah, I just don't know why you would go to all that trouble to kill.
It's a very weird story.
It's a very strange story. Yeah. I mean, I guess the Mossad is... I mean, I've heard that they're involved in, like, a lot of covert stuff.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of, like, special operations,
Oh, that's so weird.
Yeah. So, I mean, who knows what the fuck, you know?
I love action movies.
I mean, they or, like, the CIA or, like, any of these, like, organizations is up to, right? The fucking GRU.
The what?
It's Russia military intelligence. The ones who, like, you know... led the battle on American democracy against American democracy.
Yeah. The FCU or the APA.
What's that? The American
or the
Psychological
MTL.
Association.
I'm just making up letters.
Metrolina.
Oh my god.
I think that was the train organization down in North Carolina. MTA.
It's not Amtrak.
No, there's Amtrak too.
Freaking Amtrak.
But like the one like going around the city or whatever.
Oh.
Are you done?
Yeah.
Any other thoughts or theories or queries or?
It wasn't suicide, and I think
suicide is painless.
I think he one of the parts of the theories was that he was killed because he knew too much about like arms dealing between the Israelis and the Iranians during the time.
There was arms dealings between Iran and Israel?
I suppose. That's what Wikipedia said.
That seems unlikely. They've always been, like, bitter enemies. Wait, when? Like, in the 80s?
Yeah, in the 80s.
I mean, I know there was, like, the Iran-Contra affair, where, like, the U.S. was, like, you know, buying Iranian weapons to give to the rebels in, like, Nicaragua or whatever.
My sources were... Wikipedia, a website. So a lot of them were in German at the bottom. It's at the bottom.
Oh, okay.
A lot of them were in German.
Uh-huh.
So I only had a couple. One of them's from the 20 Committee, a website with a lot of this crap. And I found some episode of some show, season 1 episode 88 of a show called the 100 Years series. That had a lot of the gritty details.
That sounds like it'd been an interesting series. It's like an episode for every year or what?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But this was only like 8 minutes long.
Oh,
so I think they do multiple stories in one episode.
Okay.
And this person cut the
Barschel
one, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, cool. Now I'm gonna do mine. Yeah. Yeah. Mario's turn. Woo! Okay. So I'm going to talk about Russia's secret war in eastern Ukraine. So
secret?
It's secret in the sense that they do not admit that they are involved in this conflict in eastern Ukraine. As we will see, it is not so much in doubt, but it's kind of one of those, like, open secrets, right? And there are definitely parts of this that are more, like, mysterious than others.
Okay.
But, like, what we do know is that on April 12th of 2014, a guy named Igor Girkin, a former, in scare quotes, Russian military officer, secretly crossed the border into Ukraine with a few dozen troops. And actually, kind of started this, you know, so-called invasion into Ukraine. Do we know why? Not exactly, but we'll get to the theories at the end.
Okay, so that's part of the question.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of one of the maybe the central mystery about all this is, like, why? Why is Russia, you know, Putin specifically, like, so fixated on Ukraine and, like, carrying out this low-level conflict that's been going on for, like, 4 years?
I think at the beginning of, before we do, like, our things, we should do, like, so what are the questions we have here that how and why is this a mystery?
Yeah, like, what are the mysteries?
Yes.
And maybe, like, a little
I
bit
think
of
it would be
background or
good for this
something.
one, yeah.
That's true. There's, like, a lot of that I could do in terms of, like, background information for this. I've read, like, a lot about, like, the history of Ukraine, like, how it's been part of Russia, it's been, like, its own separate country,
No,
like,
we don't
a
have
few
to
times,
answer
but,
it.
like... No, I know.
We're not
I'm
supposed to.
No, I know. I'm just talking about
'Cause
this...
it's a mystery.
I'm just talking about this story specifically. But anyway, so, like I said, 2014, April 2014, like, the troop buildup into Ukraine kind of starts from Russia.
This, like, just happened.
What?
This.
Oh, yeah, it's like, recent. It's like, you saw something on your phone? What happened? But anyway, Gherkin, like I said, he came in with just a few dozen troops, but he actually did this thing where he, like, would have them drive around 2 big armored personnel carriers every night to make it kind of, like, seem like there was a lot of troops. And that was part of how he was able to, like, take over some of these, like, towns and stuff. He would just kind of intimidate them.
Deliberate.
Yeah,
right?
It's kind
that
of,
takes,
like, sneaky.
Planning.
Definitely. It's in the grand tradition of, using, tactics in war that are, like, meant to confuse or, trick the other side. But apparently it was pretty effective. So, this kind of, like, small-scale invasion kind of marked the beginning of the Russia, officially secret involvement in the Ukrainian crisis. And it's like a conflict that's been, like, very hot, where there's been, like, a ton of, fighting and everything over, like, towns and cities and airports and what have you.
Wow.
And then there's been other times where it's, like, more kind of just low level, like, shelling every night and kind of, like, monitoring this, like, conflict zone between the two areas. But it's been going on, continuously since 2014, since April of 2014, up until, like, now, and who knows when this is really going to end, right? And somewhere between 8,000 and 10,000 people have been killed.
Whoa.
Including, combatants on both sides, and also, of course, a lot of, innocent civilians. And it's actually displaced over 1.5 million people. Which I think is pretty crazy. Meaning, there's conflict here, this is where I live, so then I move to a different part of the country.
Oh, okay.
So these are, what people, if you're if you leave the country, then you're a refugee. If you remain within the country, then you're what's called an IDP, an internally displaced person. And there are apparently a large number of those in this conflict. And it's just crazy to think that this is, like, in Europe right now. This isn't, like, the conflict in South Sudan or something, or, it's not Syria or Yemen. It's, like, right there in Eastern Europe, whatever, less than a day's drive away from Paris, probably.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's just kind of crazy to think about it. And how this is, like, really a situation that we haven't seen since, like, World War II, where a country just, like, goes in and, like, takes over another part of a different country, like, in Europe.
That's scary. Oh.
And who really knows where this is going to end, right? But, like, where it, like, kind of started, like, what kind of, like, sparked this crisis, was what are called the Euromaidan protests in 2013. So, not to get, like, too much into this, but the president at the time of Ukraine was Viktor Yanukovych, okay? And he was very much allied with Russia. He's from eastern Ukraine, the Russian part of Ukraine. And there was this point where a deal was supposed to happen with NATO, with Europe, where there was going to be more economic integration with Europe. There was going to be kind of this turning towards the West, right?
Okay.
And Yanukovych essentially said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take this $15 billion bailout from Russia instead. Signaling, like, we're not going to turn west, we're going to turn east. And we're going to be more Russia-focused. And a lot of the people in Ukraine, like, 2/3 of the people in Ukraine are kind of, like, ethnically Ukrainian. They speak Ukrainian. And a third is ethnically Russian. And speaks Russian. Roughly, I mean, that's leaving out a lot of nuance, but roughly that's how things break down. And the 2/3 of the Ukrainian part was very upset with Yanukovych. So they, did a lot of protesting and eventually actually pushed him out of power. But in the meantime, Viktor Yanukovych also responded like very violently to the protests, and also by taking away like the rights to protest and the right to like assembly that they were trying to exert. But that did not stop the protests at all. Like I said, they just pushed and pushed and pushed.
Good.
Until he was taken out. But I think, this year, 2014, it was just like a fucking insane year in Ukraine. I think it's just like crazy how much like happened. So like in February, Yanukovych is ousted after the mass protests, and then a vote in parliament to like actually push him out, which technically didn't meet the threshold to remove him from power. But at that point, it didn't really matter. Like he was gone. He fled to Russia, and that's like where he stayed. In March, Russia invades Crimea. Crimea is...
We've talked about Crimea before.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not sure on the pod, but like we've definitely talked about it.
Okay.
Essentially, Crimea is a peninsula that is between Ukraine and Russia. It's on the Black Sea. And Russia has a huge China. A huge base there, Navy base. I think it's their biggest one, actually, in this city called Sevastopol. So this part of Ukraine especially has... It's been back and forth, but for most of its history, for the vast majority of the past 200 years, it's been part of Russia. And the vast majority of the people that live there at this point are Russians.
Okay.
Now, it should be said that the reason why it's almost entirely ethnic Russians that live there is because I believe Stalin essentially starved out the people that lived there until they all died, or almost all of them.
Oh my God.
And then had Russian people move there. Not that it's those people's fault, right, that live there now. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, again, this is about history, right? This one is kind of like about the weirdness and the sort of the inherent mysteriousness of these lands. Like, is Crimea a part of Russia or a part of Ukraine? Should it be a part of Crimea or a part of Ukraine or a part of Russia? These are like open questions, and people of good faith can have disagreements about it, right?
Yes.
But obviously the way that Russia went about this, by saying, like, essentially, we have to protect the Russians that live in this other country because, we don't like the government that is being elected there or instituted there by their own people.
So they're very separated, it seems.
What?
The Russian part of the Ukraine and the Ukrainian part, the Ukraine.
Right. There is definitely a big conflict. Like if you live in the U.S., it's like the difference between the North and the South, but like pumped up by 1,000. It's even geographically, like the eastern part is farmlands. It's some of the most fertile farmland in the world, actually, and the part in the west is all like woodlands. So there's like this geographical divide. There's this language divide. And obviously, being situated where it is between Russia and then Europe, on the other side, it's like Romania is like right next to them. So there's this like natural conflict, natural like tension between, these two sides of Ukraine that's like kind of always existed. And Crimea itself is like the sort of best encapsulation of that, right? Because the people of Crimea did technically vote to join Russia. Now, that vote was like 97-3 because, people who would have voted against it were like tortured and prevented from voting and stuff like that. There was like, the Russian special forces actually like wearing no insignia. You think about that, just like these meaty like guys with like heavy machine guns in just like all black uniforms. Like no insignia at all, just like walking around the town, like taking over the government buildings, taking over the airport, just like standing on street corners, just like saying like, nope, now this is part of Russia. now you are part of Russia.
Oh.
And a lot of people around you just being like, okay. But then some people being like, oh, I don't know about this. Like the ethnic Tatars, or Tatars, or however you're supposed to say it, who are Turkic people, who are Muslim, were some of those people being killed by Stalin back in the day, and who are very much, like, persecuted by certain segments of the Russian population.
Yeah,
like,
they wouldn't want to be a part of Russia at all.
Exactly. I mean, think about that person. Think about that Turkic, Tatar person, like, sitting in their apartment being like, I hope that guy in the black uniform doesn't come and shoot me, because no one's going to fucking do anything about it if they do. You know? I don't know. It's just like those people, the ones who are, like, caught in the middle of the conflicts, that I always feel, like, really bad for. I mean, everyone obviously involved, but, like, especially, like, those, like, ethnic minorities.
Especially when people don't really know what's happening.
Right, because,
like, what?
It's all...
I feel like that's almost the worst part.
Yeah.
Not knowing, like, I don't know.
Right, just, like, the uncertainty of being, like, captured in this kind of conflict where you don't know what the government is. You don't know who's in charge. You don't know what the future of, like, your land is going to be. Yeah, it's, like, very unsettling. Very, very unsettling. So I'm, like, halfway through this year of 2014, by the way. So after, Crimea's invaded in March, the next month in April, that's when pro-Russian separatists in the eastern part of Ukraine start taking over towns, taking over buildings, and eventually they form these two, like, republics, again in scare quotes, the Donetsk People's Republic and the Luhansk People's Republic.
Okay.
And these are two areas that, again, have been historically more Russian, and ostensibly what these people were trying to do is, like, create these, like, separate kind of little mini states that are defined by their, kind of small scale, loyalties and, whatever. And Russia kind of has a recent history of doing stuff like this.
Yes.
Right, like in Moldova with Transnistria, and in Georgia with, like, South Ossetia and Abkhazia. So this is not, this is kind of like their playbook at this point, right? And I think it's important to kind of see this in context of, like, what Putin has been doing since 2000, since he came in. Essentially, it seems like he wants to reinstitute the USSR. Like, that seems like it's his main kind of, like, end point. But, again, who knows,
Back in the USSR.
Right, I'm sure he loves that song.
You know how lucky you are,
So, huge Beatles fans, Vladdy is. Vladdy. I call him Vladdy because we're friends. We're not. He's not a good person. I would never be friends with him. Just to be clear. I
feel like Putin would make a good centaur.
He would. That picture has been created many, many times. Yes.
Oh.
Wait, you're referencing that, right? You're fucking with me? You've never seen that?
No.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely
I just feel it in my bones. Maybe I have seen it and I don't really remember.
That must be it, because it's like pretty famous.
It's something I just, like, looked at and scrolled.
Well, I mean, the picture of him bare-chested riding on the horse is obviously the more famous, but then...
That's the one I've definitely seen that.
The transformation of that into him as a centaur is definitely a thing as well.
Wow.
Learn something new every day, especially on Wednesdays.
Wednesday.
So July 17th, and this is really fucking tragic.
God.
You probably remember it. Rebels, the pro-Russian separatist rebels in the east probably accidentally shoot down Malaysian Airlines Flight 17. And
That's what happened?
That's what happened. It took a long time to figure it out, partly because the rebels, were blocking the areas.
It was an oops?
That's what they think. So
Oh my God.
In the days or weeks before this happened, the rebels had been supplied with surface-to-air missiles by Russia, called Books or SA-11s, and they had actually shot down 2 Ukrainian military planes that were, like, really high-flying. So what the investigators think is that they thought this was another Ukrainian military plane, and they shot it down. So they knew they were shooting down a plane, but they didn't think that it was, this plane with 298 people who were killed. Hopefully, right? You would hope, at least.
God.
But it's pretty sickening. What the rebels did do, though, was they did block investigators from, getting to the site, and they also prevented bodies from being buried for days. So, you can definitely blame them for that, at least knowingly. So, as 2014 goes on, as time goes on, the fighting just gets worse. The rebels start to lose because, again, they're like these, rebels, not the, more professionalized army of Ukraine, right? But what happens to turn the tide, to create this kind of stalemate that's been going on ever since, is that Russia invades for real this time. So they continue to deny that there's any official involvement, right?
Oh my God.
But, clearly there is, right? Because people see Russian tanks going into Ukraine and, these lines of tanks, right? Going from Russia to Ukraine that people can see.
It is, so amazing to me how far cognitive dissonance can go.
I know, right? I mean, it's like doublethink. It's Orwellian. I don't know. It's ghosting, right? Essentially, these leaders, these people in power think that just because they have the power, right? They pull the strings, that they can just say whatever they want into reality. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't matter whether you're the president of the United States or the mayor of a town or whatever. You can't just say something and make it true.
Yes.
Right? You don't have that. No one has that power. But Putin especially is seemingly guilty of this.
The cure to cancer is bagels.
The cure to cancer is this snake oil. Buy it from me. People do that too.
We're going to talk about that in a Weird News Extra. We're going to talk about that.
Oh, I didn't even know. I did not even know. So
stay tuned.
Right. Listen to the end. So there are also rebels, the pro-separatist rebels who anonymously report later on that their commanders are all Russians. So what they do is, these Russian generals, they'll retire or go on leave or whatever.
Oh my God.
And then they'll go over, and
to this war.
To this war and lead those troops. And some of these, especially this one instance, I don't remember his name, he was later killed in fighting in Syria, and in his obituary and everything, it talked about his time, fighting in Ukraine and stuff.
This is nuts.
Right. So, like I said, the fighting is continuing. There's this de facto border that's created between the DPR, the Donetsk People's Republic, and the LPR, the Luhansk People's Republic, and the rest of Ukraine. It's this little strip, along the border between Ukraine and Russia. And this, kind of mirrors that historic divide that we were talking about earlier. And this conflict, it was supposed to have been resolved way back when, on September 5th, 2014, by what's called the Minsk Agreement. And this was meant to institute a ceasefire, and also it was supposed to get rid of all those, illegal foreign Russian troops. That, Chloe, you got me sick. That are, clearly there, because, everyone can fucking see that they're there. Right. But this agreement was an utter failure.
So do they have
did not stop the conflict at all.
So is it just, do they have Russian flags and stuff?
No.
Okay, so
they're actively hiding their presence there, but there are satellites that capture the movements of Russian troops across the border.
How do we know they're Russian?
They're coming from Russia into Ukraine. These are Russian tanks. The personnel carriers.
It's the other aspect of it that he's trying to make public is getting to me.
What do you mean, other aspect he's trying to make public?
There's nothing going on here.
Right, it's that ghosting we're talking about. Yeah. And even when things happen that he can't ignore, right? Can't deny. Like, there are instances in which Russian, like, troops and paratroopers and, like, members of the GRU have been captured inside of Ukraine, and what Putin says is, like, oh, you know, they, you know, are on leave, or they went across the border accidentally, you know, things like that. It's like these totally implausible excuses that, like, make no sense. With a wink and a smile, of course. And of course, you know, the shelling along that conflict zone continues to terrorize and kill people and damage buildings. So, you know, again, the headline here is that thousands and thousands of people, you know, up to 10,000 have died, and thousands of people are being, like, terrorized and, like, you know, in active conflict zones, you know, right now in Europe. Like, again, it's just, like, weird. We don't talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
So by November 2014, the AP reports that 80 unmarked military vehicles in Ukraine are carrying Russian troops, and there's, you know, this kind of, like, build-up, right? This is, again, after the Minsk agreement. So, you know, clearly it did not stop anything. It actually intensified after that. And there were also mostly unmarked vehicles, although there was one that was actually marked as a Russian, you know, hospital van or whatever, seen going back over the border with Russian troops in them. But, you know, nurses, other people involved in that are absolutely, like, not allowed to speak about it.
Wow.
Yeah. And, you know, yeah, it's just, like, basically an open secret, right? The recruitment of the troops, because, of course, that's happening. They're doing it kind of just out in the open. But, again, it's like they mask it.
Why does Russia do that?
Well, again, we'll get to the theories at the end. I know the mystery of it, right? But we'll talk about it. One way that they do mask this movement of troops to Ukraine, though, is under the guise of providing humanitarian help.
Oh, so that's
right, because technically, according to Russian law, you can't be a mercenary. So you're not a mercenary. You're just a volunteer. You're going to provide humanitarian help with your AK-47.
I know, right?
And your fucking mortar, you know? Go be a humanitarian.
Jeez.
Okay. And sometimes, and this is really bad actually, they are sometimes disguised as Red Cross.
No.
Yeah, which really pisses off the real Red Cross, as you can imagine. The families of these Russian soldiers...
That is...
I know, it's pretty low. The families of these Russian soldiers are also, like, absolutely not allowed to talk about this at all. They're, like, intimidated. They're, in some instances, not given the pensions they're supposed to get, things of that nature. And they're not given, like, the information about how their, you know, son or daughter, like, actually died. And there's an organization, actually, called the Russian Union of Committees of Soldiers' Mothers, that, like, want to find out about this, want to speak out about it, right? It's sort of reminiscent of the, you know, the mothers of La Plaza de Mayo, or the grandmothers of La Plaza de Mayo.
Yes,
You know, from the
Los Desaparecidos.
Yeah, Los Desaparecidos of the Argentine Dirty War.
Dirty War.
Right. Long title. Very tragic. But, you know, clearly the mothers, the family, like, want to know. You know, they have a right to know. At least I think they have a right to know. Clearly, the Kremlin doesn't think they have a right to know. But, you know, that's sort of beside the point, I guess. The press, of course, are also, like, attacked and intimidated, as they always are in Putin's Russia. In mid-September 2014, a senior producer for a news network that talked about Russian military involvement in Ukraine, named Ksenia Batanova, was badly beaten, including having her skull fractured.
Oh my god.
Yeah. You know, just for reporting that these deaths had happened in Ukraine. And, like, talking about how this was a thing that's happening. You know, that was her fucking crime. And, you know, one thing that, you know, kind of contributes to us, like, knowing all of this stuff as well, is that in 2016, a Ukrainian hacker group called Cyber Junta obtained a trove of emails, like I think a gigabyte of emails, from the office of a high-level Putin aide named Vladislav Surkov,
Okay.
who is essentially like overseeing the Russian involvement in the conflict in eastern Ukraine. And this showed in like exacting detail the extreme extent of Russians' involvement in eastern Ukraine. Like, they were fucking micromanaging everything there. From like the weapons and the uniforms and the troop movements to who was going to win elections in these, you know, like local sham elections, to like expense reports.
This is like mind-blowing to me that something like this can just happen.
Yeah, it's very bizarre, you know. I guess it's not totally dissimilar to things that the United States has done in the past, but I feel like we've gotten over this, right? Like, we're past this phase. But clearly Russia is not. Like, they're just getting back into this. This is more like, you know, something that a country would do, you know, in the 19th century or something. You know, this is like colonialism, basically.
Yes.
So in February 2017, there was a third peace agreement after Minsk I and Minsk II, which we didn't even mention because it doesn't even need mentioning. That third peace agreement was signed, but again, the low-level conflict continues. Like, none of these peace agreements seems to do anything, partly because the Ukrainian regime and the Russian regimes kind of don't want to admit what's really going on here.
Yeah, they want to keep it a secret anyway.
Right, they would rather it kind of like got brushed under the rug, and neither of them had to kind of lose face by really like losing the war. But again, that doesn't make it any better for the people that live in like Donetsk and Luhansk.
Are there people fighting back?
Oh yeah, definitely. There was from the very beginning. There were, you know, sort of irregular militias formed on the Ukrainian side.
Yeah.
You know, just like there were on the pro-Russian side, for sure. They were the ones kind of out there on the front lines at the beginning, and throughout the conflict, really. But, you know, more so, I guess, now integrated into the Ukrainian army. And the Ukrainian army itself has been doing more training with the U.S., with, you know, what some people, I'm sure, hope will be their future NATO partners. Because that's kind of, again, where this started, where it goes back to, right? Is Ukraine part of Europe? Is it going to join NATO? Is it going to join the European Union? That's the kind of like existential conflict, right, that sparked and continues to fire this war, this civil war. I mean, essentially, right? It's a low-level civil war, but still, that, you know, again, we kind of just forget about because it's not in the news all the time. But I think it's important. And like we've been talking about throughout, it's really not clear why Russia, why Putin are really interested in doing this, right? Like, again, why? What's the why behind this?
Yeah.
There was a really good Vox article that presented kind of like two theories of this, right? And I thought this encapsulated it pretty well. So theory one is that Putin is kind of strategically creating this ongoing regional conflict, right? And as we talked about earlier, just as they did in Moldova with Transnistria, in Georgia with South Ossetia, essentially to create leverage over Ukraine, right? If I have the ability to say, like, there either is or is not going to be ongoing regional conflict within your country, then I have leverage over you, right? And this is, you know, to get economic concessions or, you know, to exert leverage over the internal domestic policy decisions of, you know, the leaders. And it's kind of been working for them, you know, so that I think that one kind of makes sense. You know, this is Putin's playbook, right?
Oh my God.
This is like what he does. This is in his wheelhouse, in terms of like the modern Russian state.
Guy.
Right. Again, not a good person.
What a guy.
Vladdy, I'm sorry. You got to change.
Ew.
or just let someone else take it. Who's better. Not that I'm telling the Russian people what to do, but it seems like could have a better leader than that. I'm sure they could say that the same to us. But anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent.
They right.
So theory 2 is that Putin's nationalist, expansionist rhetoric essentially forced him into doing this, forced him into the conflict. Essentially, he did it to save face.
Okay, that's what I was
theory.
thinking.
Exactly, that's essentially what that is that he didn't really want to do this because, again, there are a lot of really good reasons not to want to do this. It takes political capital away from him at a time when he's not gaining it. He's certainly losing it because the economy is not doing very well. When this conflict started, it was doing much worse, actually. And that's his main source of, legitimate political power, other than, controlling the media and, the economy and, through these kleptocrats and
he just
on
wants
and on and on and on.
He just wants, something else to control, I guess.
He feels like he has to control the narrative, I think. That's more than anything. Like, he wants to define what is Russia, and what it should be. I think he feels that Russia should be a larger country. It's pretty big. It's the biggest country on Earth. Is that not enough for you?
That's the question.
Do you really need more? Right? If I were, talking to him, just trying to convince him, you're the biggest country already.
Yeah.
You got plenty of people. Why not just, let them live their lives and, just try to, I don't know.
I wonder how long it takes to drive across Russia.
Ooh, that's a good question. They've probably done it on Top Gear. I would think probably at least 48 hours.
Wow.
Maybe.
How much is it for
hours.
Us?
I know from here to Austin is 24 hours.
Wow.
So that's almost the entire north-south of the United States. So all the way across the United States, east to west, probably maybe 36 hours or something. I don't know.
Did you know in the Elizabethan era they didn't talk about length as time? I'm 20 minutes away. That didn't make any sense to them.
Because they didn't have well-functioning clocks.
I know.
That's why, right? Did I get it right?
Yes.
Did I get the answer? Did I pass the test?
Yeah.
This is how I always think. This is why I love history mysteries. Oh, this is a history mystery. It's sort of recent history. Anyway, that was the whole thing, and obviously it's still going on, but I think we can kind of take a look back, over the past 4 years, what's happened, and kind of take stock of it. But it's very tragic, and is an official mystery because Russia may or may not be involved. Scare quotes, but they are. It seems pretty clear, according to reporting. So, my sources, Seth Frantzman at the Jerusalem Post, a unsigned article in The Economist, which is titled Ukraine and Russia are both trapped by the war in Donbass. Mm-hmm. Donbass being the name for that region of eastern Ukraine. Vox, that Vox article, which was a series of cards about the Ukraine crisis, and various Wikipedia articles, of course, on...
Wikipedia!
You gotta love Wikipedia. Long Wikipedia articles. I did not read even... That's a hole you could go down. 1/10 of what was out there about this. There was so much. Oh my god. There's so much out there about this crisis, about this conflict. An article by...
It goes deep.
It goes super, super deep. I could have gone on for way, way longer. So Phil McCausland at NBC News, also Robert Windrum at NBC News, and Maria Tsetkova at Reuters. So that is my story.
Do you have some weird shit in the news?
I do have some weird shit. Thank you for asking. Weird shit in the news.
Weird shit in the news.
Weird shit in the news. News! I like the news.
I'm so hoarse. I'm sorry.
A horse is a horse, of course. The famous Mr. Ed. So mine is by Yi Charlotte Ming, and it's in National Geographic. Meet the worshippers who believe they're aliens in human form.
Oh, boy.
Ooh.
Oh, boy.
So this is about a really interesting, like, actually really fast-growing religious sect in Brazil. And they're called Vale do Amanhecer. So what they believe is that this is sort of, they do the ancient aliens thing, right? So they're like totally bought into the ancient aliens thing, right? And they think that aliens have, on a recurring basis, come back to Earth. And they are actually the current incarnations of the aliens on Earth. Bam. Jaguars. They're called Jaguars.
Are they playing a game?
They wear cool costumes from different religions all around the world. No, they are entirely serious. And they have chosen to live this life where they do a lot of rituals. They do a lot of, like, praying to different types of gods. And, I don't know. It seemed pretty cool. It was established by this woman named Naiva Chavez Zelaya, who was known as Aunt Neva, in 1959, actually. And they have their, like, headquarters or whatever near Brasilia, which used to be the capital of Brazil, before it was replaced by Rio de Janeiro, like around that same time, I think. And what the article talks about is how it kind of seems like it was a response to this, like, modernizing of Brazil, right? It's like this way to, like, recapture these, like, traditional practices, whether they're from Brazil or from Egypt or from different, like, parts of the world.
Okay.
And it kind of, like, molds them together into this, like, meta religion kind of thing.
Okay.
And they wear really cool costumes, so I would definitely look up that article. Yeah, there's like a lot of good pictures in it.
Okay, what article is this?
It is on National Geographic. Meet the worshippers who believe they're aliens in human form. Yep. So you got some? You got some weird shit in the news?
Yeah, so...
Oh, good.
There have been crack pipe vending machines...
I heard about that.
...showing up in Long Island.
Fucking Long Island.
First of all, what the fuck?
Right.
And I'm trying not to use that phrase in this podcast.
What? What the fuck?
Yeah, but it's hard not to with the things we talk about.
Right.
Anyway, whose idea was this? And come forward. I think it says they found 3. I'm looking at an article from CNN. Police want to know who put crack pipe vending machines on Long Island. I also wanted to talk about how a... Nope.
No editing.
Nope.
No, not doing that one.
Nope.
Cool. Good. Well,
that's gonna be it's gonna be in the weird news extra.
Cool. Well, I'll definitely post the one that we recorded like fucking 2 weeks ago, that I still haven't posted. Need to edit it. So thank you so much for listening.
Oh my god.
Y'all
have no idea. It's important to support the little people, right?
We're both pretty tiny, so I think you should support us. I'm only 5 feet tall.
That's so cute.
I made a short joke. I make short jokes all the time. But no, yeah, we really do appreciate it. Like,
my family makes short jokes about you all the time.
I bet they do.
My brother does any chance he gets.
Yeah. I do not care. Like, I think they're funny. I don't know. But yeah, like, it's like not super easy for us to keep doing this every week. Like, we are both like legitimately super busy.
Yes.
But we keep doing it, like, because we love like mysteries and learning and like building our empathy.
It's a fun little project.
I just love being able to make something every week.
Yes.
But, like, the fact that people are actually listening to it and, like, our listener base is, like, growing essentially from us doing nothing except doing this every week, just doing it, not even editing it. Like, I think that's pretty cool. It makes me happy.
I am smiling
So anyway, good shit.
Good shit.
Good.
In the news.
Yeah, that's some good shit in the news.
Us? Hell yeah.
Right?
Team Mystery.
Team freaking Mystery.
That was a good high five.
I know, right? So on that good high five, good job by you!
No!